Now let's talk about the subcortical brain. The subcortical brain is just all of those brain structures that lie below the cortex, the outer wrapping of your brain, if you will. It's responsible for almost all of the primitive and automatic functions that you see in any organism, and in fact, we share this subcortical brain, very similar structures and functions, with other mammals. So, in a sense, it's a kind of older, less sophisticated brain, but it does take care of business, as we shall see. Now, let's talk about some of these older brain structures. The brainstem is the oldest part of the brain, beginning where the spinal cord swells and enters the skull. It's responsible for automatic survival functions, and this is where it is approximately located in your brain. Notice that the brain stem penetrates in the middle of the brain, and at the very top of the brain, it's pretty much the most central location in the brain. There are three structures in the brain stem that I would like to talk about. The first of these is called the medulla, sometimes called the medulla oblongata. It's right at the base of the brain stem. In other words, the first bulge once your spinal column comes up towards your brain. It controls heartbeat and breathing, and so it's pretty darned essential. You couldn't survive without an intact medulla. Ironically, you could survive if much of the rest of your brain is not functioning, and this is a condition that one might call brain dead, yet you could be maintained by intravenous feeding, and at some point an ethical dilemma comes up. How human are you if you just have this brainstem existence? A second structure, just above the medulla, is called the reticular formation. It's a nerve network, and that plays an important role in controlling arousal. You can thank the reticular formation when you are suddenly alert with some sort of noise, perhaps even hearing your name. The third structure I want to talk about in the brainstem is the thalamus. The thalamus is the brain's sensory switchboard. That is, it acts as a relay station for all of your senses. It receives the signal coming up the spinal column and transmits it to many, many parts of the brain. The one sense that it does not act as a relay station or a switchboard is the sense of smell, but all other senses first stop at the thalamus. It doesn't just speak to parts of the cortex, however, it also speaks to some of the older parts of the brain, including the cerebellum, which we'll see about next, and the medulla. As a reminder, the brainstem penetrates into the brain and is at the very core of the brain. So the thalamus is in a unique position to communicate easily with all parts of the brain. Now we're going to look at the cerebellum. The perspective we take is to look up the spinal cord at the back of the brain, where we see two structures that actually look like two pieces of gum stuck to the back of the brain. It's called cerebellum because it is in fact a little brain. It helps coordinate voluntary movements and balance. It is a brain that can learn and remember, though it is limited to simple learning. Unlike our cerebrum, the big brain if you will, or cortex, that handles very advanced thinking. One can imagine early in evolutionary history, however, where this was a major advance, where organisms could learn and therefore survive in their ecological niche. Now I want to talk about a third important subcortical brain system. It's called the limbic system. Some people refer to it as the emotional brain. The limbic system is a circular system of structures that lie in between the brain stem and the cerebral cortex and is wrapped around the thalamus, so it is very centrally located in the brain. It's associated with emotions such as fear, rage, and aggression, as well as with basic drives like food, water, and sex. There are three important structures: the amygdala, the hypothalamus, and the hippocampus. We'll first talk about the amygdala. It's actually a Greek word meaning almond because it's almond-shaped. And here it is in purple, right next to the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. It consists of two almond-shaped
clusters linked to the emotions of fear and anger. We know this from electrical stimulation studies, where they have shown that you can induce fear when there should be none, and also induce rage without any particular cause. Imagine a cat with an electrical stimulation of its amygdala suddenly becoming very fearful of a mouse. And this would be a dramatic demonstration that amygdala, in fact, controls these emotions. I'm going to next talk about the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, depicted in this illustration as the little blue body there, gets its name because it lies just below the thalamus, hypo meaning below. It directs several maintenance activities like eating, drinking, body temperature, and plays a role in the control of emotions as well. Scientists have found a reward center located in the hypothalamus that, if stimulated, acts as a very powerful reward. The hypothalamus also helps govern the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. This master gland, in turn, has a major influence on the entire endocrine system. We'll learn more about that in a separate lecture. The reward center in the hypothalamus bears closer examination. In 1954, two scientists, Olds and Miller, accidentally implanted an electrode into the hypothalamus. They thought they were going into the reticular formation. They discovered that anytime this rat got stimulated, it acted as if it were very happy and had been rewarded. Subsequent studies have demonstrated that this reward is so powerful that a rat will cross an electrified grid to get the reward through self-stimulation by pressing a bar. It's since been shown that this reward system appears in many species, although not so obvious in human species. It's associated with the dopamine reward system. So what can we conclude about these subcortical systems? These primitive brain systems, the brainstem, the cerebellum, and the limbic system, they help us to survive by regulating breathing, eating and drinking, keeping us alert, experiencing emotions and rewards, and remembering what and where good things are and what we should avoid. All in all, these brain systems do a remarkable job.